We say welcome to yet another edition of Economic Forum. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight, our topic is on remittances and other economic issues. So, welcome once again. I want to welcome my guest, Mr. Chuchu Alex Jones. Alex, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here.
And also want to welcome Dr. Judge Gonpu on yet another edition of Economic Forum. Dr. Gonpu, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you.
And we are expecting economist Samuel P. Jackson. He accepted to be on the show tonight. So hopefully in the middle, we're going to have Mr. Samuel P. Jackson join us to discuss the Economic Forum. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. We are excited to be here to talk economics in Liberia. That's the Economic Forum. We come your way every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Tonight, our topic is remittances. When you go to Western Union, MoneyGram, and all that, that's remittances. So, but before we begin our topic on remittances, we want to have some to talk about some current economic issues that are happening right now in the country, Liberia. Tonight, we're going to take a little slightly different format. Every time we come to the forum, we're going to have a chairman to chair the forum. Our chairman tonight, drum roll, Mr. Alex Chuchu Jones. Mr. Chairman, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, Dennis. And again, it's a pleasure, Dr. G. Look forward to a very healthy and very stimulative economic discussion.
All right. Quite recently, they concluded the National Economic Dialogue. That's where we will start from. Before I pass it on to you, Mr. Chairman, for the forum tonight, the Liberian Economic Dialogue, or the National Economic Dialogue, NED, they just concluded that. We don't have the what came out, the output document of that dialogue. Mr. Jackson was going to email that to me, but we read on the news that that was read by Chairman McIntosh Gawier. So let me get the ball rolling. First, let's discuss the forum or the economic dialogue, what it was about, what came out of it, and how effective we think that's going to be. Mr. Jones, let's start with you and just open discussion on the National Economic Dialogue.
Well, I haven't really followed the details of it. As I was headed home from work, I was able to read some of the proposal and the Secretariat's the dialogue, the outcome of the dialogue. Just on the bat of things, I would say it's a 50-50. It can be a good thing, but in this case, unfortunately, I think it was a horrible mistake. I'm not, once I get the facts from the different sources and the actual documentation, but so far what they've released in terms of addressing certain issues, and we'll go over that, I think it's a waste of time, money, and
Mr. Jones, can you talk a little louder?
Yeah, can you hear me? All right.
Okay, that's better. Yeah.
Better. Okay. Yeah. So from the bat of things, from what I've read so far, the time and the investment into it, I think it's a big disappointment, and I will be telling the Liberian people why, and as we proceed. But I think it was a waste of time and money.
Dr. Gonpu.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. And I wanted to start off by saying that I think for these forums, since it's in interview format, I think it's a good idea for you, the host, to sort of start with some introduction of the guests in terms of those profile statements that have been given to you. Sometimes it helps because not everyone participating has been on a show before. So there's no need to assume that your guest will be well known. And I'm saying this because during our show the last time, those profiles were not read, and you had one guest who came out to attack me, basically saying that I'm one of those people who have been destructive to the country. And I think it's possibly because there was no overview given in terms of who are the people appearing on the show. At least one or two sentences about who these people are can be very helpful. So that at least if they're going to launch an attack, then they'll know that these people didn't just walk off the street and then appeared on your show.
Okay.
Having said that, in terms of the economic dialogue, I do not have much information. I was not invited, and I looked on the internet. I basically heard the announcement on Facebook, and I was surprised that there were Nigerians and Ghanaians and other West Africans attending. So, as one of the economists of the country who have worked at very high level in the country, including being an advisor to some of the leaders in the country, I was surprised that I didn't know anything about it until I saw the announcement on Facebook. So then I wonder whether or not the Ghanaians and the Nigerians who were attending heard it on Facebook 2 days towards the meeting, just at the time I heard about it. So obviously, they were invited. And based on the information we've gotten so far, there were letters written to, for example, Alex Cummings with a formal invitation that went out on August 15th. So the planning has been in progress, and a number of people knew about it. But having said that, I mean, I really cannot judge this particular forum, this particular dialogue, but this is not new. This is the idea of calling people together from across the country to have some discussions relative to the national challenges is not new. Charles Taylor did something very similar. And in his case, I think there were a number of people who came from the United States and who attended that the meeting that Charles Taylor called. So this is not new. The only thing that is a little bit interesting is the idea of calling it a dialogue. So right now, the country is facing so many economic challenges, from inflation, high inflation, to the depreciating exchange rate, and the issue of salary, what the finance ministry calls salary harmonization, but what so many civil servants are calling salary reduction. And we've been reading about JFK employees that are considering a strike action because of dissatisfaction with their pay. So there are mounting problems. And so, I mean, the whole idea of a conference that is called a dialogue is not really clear to me. Just the idea of dialogue is just basically a conversation.
Thank you.
So it's not very clear to me, and it's good that Mr. Jackson is coming on the show tonight. And I think he just came on. He might give us more insight, and that might help us to be better prepared to discuss the outcomes and the goals.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gonpu. Once again, welcome to Focus on Liberia, to our economic forum. We have this every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And for the dialogue, we have Mr. Alex Jones. He's a financial consultant for many companies in the past and present, including Citibank. Dr. George Gonpu is professor of economics at the Gonpu University in New Jersey. And now we've been joined by Mr. Sam Jackson. is calling from Liberia. Mr. Jackson, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be back here. Look forward to having a great discussion with you guys, and hope that I can, get some information and I can be useful in this interaction. Thank you so much.
Thank you. By the way, Mr. Jackson is a former economic advisor to President Charles Taylor. All right. So we started by water cooler movement. Our topic tonight is on remittances and other economic issues. But you participated in the National Economic Dialogue, Mr. Jackson. Tell us in few sentences, what was the dialogue about and what has been the output? We saw the output document being read or being published, or parts of it being reported in the newspaper. Just summarize for us what the output document from the dialogue is all about.
Well, I have to read it. So if you see my eye going down, it means I'm reading. This is the draft outcome that I've managed to get sometime today. What Dr. Gabriel McIntosh read the other day was an abbreviated portion of what the outcome document is. This is the national consensus document to show a roadmap for economic recovery. Okay, so let's go. Let's look at public finance mobilization and management. Okay, some of the immediate actions within the next 6 months. Complete the process for enactment of the customs code. Negotiate and restructure external debts. Quantify, validate domestic debts, and negotiate around the findings. Recapitalize the central bank. Enforce existing fiscal rules. Ensure compliance with audit and other regulatory findings. Engage partners to improve aid management and coordination. Enhance revenue collection with appropriate strategy for small, medium, and large taxpayers. Close loopholes in laws, policies, and processes to reduce leakages in revenue and expenditure. Significantly minimize exemptions and waivers. In the medium term is to reduce inflation, stabilize the exchange rate by introducing new currency to build confidence in the economy, increase productivity, expand the productive base of the economy, develop a comprehensive borrowing strategy, including domestic auction and bond markets, promote payment system and digitization, conduct an economic.
So, Mr. Jackson, in your view, what are some of the practical steps in achieving what is being laid down in that document?
Yeah, but can I just basically, I mean, I know you're in a hurry, I know you guys are very impatient out in the West, but I want to read it so your listeners who haven't had the opportunity.
Well, we can post it, Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, we can post that. We got the idea.
So I understand
how many pages?
And I understand the fast New York and Washington D.C. and big city atmosphere, but I like for your listeners to really see what the outcome document is. It's taking me another 2 or 3 minutes and we're going to be done. So let's have some patience so we can be able to be systematically go ahead. So I'm just appealing to you. This is an appeal.
How many pages is it? How many pages?
Well, it's just a few short more pages that I'm going to read, okay?
Right. I mean, we got the idea. If you share that, I can share it on the screen.
No, but I mean, but I'm just, there were 4 thematic areas. Let me go to investment and private sector. Direct government resources to real sector more efficiently. Okay, encourage and consolidate public-private policy arrangements. Intensify ongoing efforts to retain CNW plantation and other investors. In the medium term, provide policy direction. Institute a pilot agriculture stimulus program for 3 counties. Focus on mechanized agribusiness. Unemployment and skills development, immediate action. Complete the process for the enactment of the National Youth Act. Institute a regulatory framework. Now, peace building. Of course, one of the important things in the peace building thing will be the implementation of the TRC report, including the establishment of the economic and war crimes, okay? And then we're going to the implementation of the proposal, but that's in a nutshell what the document, that was what the consensus document said. Now, your question is, Dennis?
Yeah, my question is the practical step in implementing what is in the document.
Okay, let's look at some of the challenges we face as a country. Let's just be very practical. This is a document that is supposed to be aligned with the PAPD, which is the Pro-Poll development agenda of the CDC, right? And this is to mobilize partner support, the mobilization of resources. You know that ODA, official development assistance, has declined from 60% of GDP to 20% of GDP. You have a lot of macroeconomic challenges with the rapid depreciation of the Liberian dollar and the decrease in purchasing power for many Liberians and the inducement of poverty. We also look at the on-bill drawdown and consumption associated with that, and the inability of the last government to plan for the total drawdown of on-bill. So this is a deep hole that we're all in.
Right.
And when you have a new government faced with these challenges, and this government is brand new with very limited capacity, it is a grassroots organization, and so they made a lot of mistakes in the beginning.
Right.
Okay. One of the things that they should have done immediately was to develop a baseline for economic recovery. They did not develop the baseline for economic recovery.
Mr. Jackson, I understand the premise you're trying to lay, but we just want to get to the meat of it because they talk about implementing the TRC and all the good things that have been laid down. I'm just looking at the implementation timelines and also steps in achieving those things. What did the document say about the how?
But the document, if you were listening to me read it, it gives some specific timelines in terms of short, medium, and long term, and it says 6 months, 1 year, medium and long term. It was very clear about those. It was very clear.
We will get into that. Mr. Jackson, we'll get into that. We'll ask you a lot of specifics. We'll have plenty of time to defend, support.
Yeah, can you speak in your mic better, because I can barely hear you.
Alex, speak on the other side of the mic, the other side of the microphone, then we can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
That was
Mr. Jackson, you have plenty of time. We got lots of questions for you, so let us just moderate it in a way in which we can get through the issues. You have plenty of time to explain and justify.
But I'm also asking you to be patient. When I read something, I give you timeline, and you're asking me about timeline again. It means you weren't listening to what I was reading.
No, I'm not asking you any questions at this time. All we wanted to know was your view.
I just want specific steps in the how. How would these things be implemented?
Yeah, 30 seconds.
Yeah, could I come in with a comment?
Go ahead, Dr. Gonpu.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jackson, for taking the time to share this. I think this is a major contribution because Liberians need to know what their government is doing, and you cannot just do it in just one step in terms of the press secretary to the president announcing things or the front page Africa carrying it. So I think you're coming here to share this with the diaspora and other people listening, I think is a major contribution to not only us in the diaspora, but also to the government itself. Because if you are pursuing an economic agenda, the more you have buy-in from your people, the more likely they are to be patient, the more likely they are to be supportive. But these have not been our experiences in the past. Sometimes people think about policy making in terms of being put in that position to just do what they want and just move on and what have you. So I thank you for taking the time to do this. But
thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, but he has some concerns here. You talk about introducing new currency. That is significant. That is significant in light of where we are now in this inflationary environment. Structuring or even appointing new leaders at the central bank. None of that has moved. There have been some criticism even in the media that the 3 months that the president announced regarding the retirement of the current central bank president has gone by. So to be talking about the introduction of new currency, so are you talking about after the central bank has been, the management there has been rebuilt, or you're talking about under the current management? And also you talk about
Mr. Gonpu, Dr. Gonpu, 1 second here. I think this is a forum that we set up with a clear idea what we wanted to achieve. So, I mean, let's leave the questions for now. I think everyone has been properly introduced. We do have a set format that we would like to go in so that we can cover as much issue. There will be time to give questions and answer. So let me turn it back over to Mr. Dennis before we get into the actual.
But look, Dennis, before you guys go any further, I just want to make it clear in terms of my role and my position and where I stand. I am not an official of the government of the Republic of Liberia. You are asking me questions like I am a representative of the government of Liberia. I'm a private citizen who is supporting the development of my country by supporting my friends and officials and doing things in a way that will advance the development of the country. For example, on the National Economic Dialogue, I was the development economist paid by UNDP to put together the synthesis document and to frame the discussion. I had no role in coming up with these recommendations.
Right.
Correct. The point is well taken. Mr. Jackson, we have.
Interrupt me.
Mr. Jackson.
I mean, like you I mean, this
Mr. Jackson, we have a format. You would not come here. We have a format. Please respect the format.
But
yes.
I'm giving you.
Answer the question. It's clear you're not representing the government. Can we move back to Mr. Dennis, please? We don't want to get into a diatribe. We already heard your point. We heard your point. You're not a government official. Let the show go on. There will be times where you can make that very clear. Everyone will have 1 to 2 minutes so that we can cover the discussion we're here for. We don't have all night. So, Mr. Dennis, please take it over at our normal scheduled practice. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. And thank you, Mr.
And before I turn over to you, Mr. Chairman, for the night, Mr. Jackson, what specifically I was saying was just based on the output document, not that you are part of it, was to just tell us how this is going, just in few simple sentences to tell us, okay, this is the way they want to go about it. Since we don't have the document before us, if you have that knowledge, just please share it so we can move on to the topic for tonight.
Well, I asked you today, Janice, whether you have a document. You will show me you have a document, and I'm operating on the premise that all of us have access to the document, because it doesn't make any sense for the 4 of us to be on this program.
I have access to what was released, and I'm going to share it on the screen.
Hold on.
But what I'm saying,
hold on, Alex. Mr. Jackson, you were supposed to share the document with me. You asked for my email, and I sent that to you, but you did not share it with me before the show. So, but be it may, if that's not the information you want to share, that's fine. We can still move on.
Okay.
So
let's just be clear. I'm not an official of government.
I get that.
My views are independent. I don't pretend to know the government's approach and methodology to implement the recommendations from the National Economic Dialogue. So if you're asking me in terms of, substantive issue on macroeconomic challenges, I can give you my opinion, but I cannot tell you how the government of Liberia is going to set up its bureaucracy to implement these.
Thank you. Thank you. That part is not part of the document. All right. So, again, we want to say thank you for joining us, all our viewers across the globe. At this time, we're going to turn over to, every night, we're going to have someone to chair the forum tonight. Mr. Alex Jones is going to be the chair tonight to chair the Economic Forum, discussing the topic of remittances and other economic issues. Mr. Jones, I turn over to you.
Thank you, Dennis. Again, welcome viewers and welcome to all the guests here tonight. The idea of an economic forum came about a few months ago, where we thought it wise as economists, financial experts, and financial planners, business people in America, that we shouldn't sit by and not contribute constructively to the development of Liberia. We should come together and discuss our economic, financial issues. So that is where this is being started. It's part of the Business and Economic Forum on focus on Liberia. It's part of the Economic and Business Forum of Africa. And it's to bring African financial expertise together to find solutions. This is not a political forum. We support no political party. All the views here are personal and professional. So just wanted to thought I put that out there. Tonight's show forum will be discussing remittances and other economic and financial issues in Liberia, around the world, and relevant information that we believe that the public, the Liberian people, can benefit from, can make better choices. So this is why I reached out to Dr. Gonpu. I never met him or knew him in the past, and discussed the idea as I did to Dennis. There's no politics or anything going on ever on this show. And Mr. Jackson, I really respect the fact that you could come, you on the ground in Liberia, and we believe that you can give us a lot of information from your observation, from your years of experience, as do Mr. Gonpu. Having said that, I will be asking some very specific questions for the next 20 to 25 minutes. Then we'll open the line for people to call or post their questions. It has to be economic or finance related. We'll ask that we keep our answers short to 1 minute so that we can entertain as many questions and answers as possible. Before we go back to other issues, I would like us to discuss the topic we're here for today right now, which is the remittances and how does it impact the country? What challenges do we face in Liberia in the wake of the declining currency and the slowing GDP? Mr. Gonpu, I will ask you my first question, and please be very brief. I will, again, if you want to elaborate, you have other opportunities to ask more questions. What's your view on remittances in Liberia? What prospects do you think it has in regenerating our economy?
Well, I think remittances are very important to Liberia. The remittances have become very important globally. And the data shows that, especially to West Africa, that remittances are really competing now, and in some cases more reliable than foreign direct investment. In some countries, remittances are now exceeding foreign direct investment. In Liberia, over the last 10 years, the amount of remittances that have come to the country, in-war remittances, I would estimate over $3 billion. And recently, in 2018, the data shows a decline in in-war remittances. and even in net remittances. So the amount that came into the country went from $571 million in 2017 to about $408 million in 2018. And the 2019 data is still yet to come, but there might be some estimates already. So remittances are important in the sense that they are helpful to families in the country, help to support consumption. They are also being used for investment in some cases, sometimes to start small businesses. And they're also helpful to government because they help to provide.
Thank you, Mr. Gonpu. Thank you for your time for that answer. First of all, I think I have on the screen what a remittance is and what it can do to a country. Mr. Jackson has been one of the most experienced finance and economic professionals in Liberia. I'm sure during his years as a vice and serving in many capacities, he's had some direct interaction or experiences with the flow of remittances in Liberia. Mr. Jackson, could you give us some kind of view on what have been your experiences in regards to money sent home?
Well, first of all, like Dr. Gonpu said, foreign remittances have become a major part of the global financial architecture. And in some cases, like he said, personal remittances to countries are significantly more than foreign direct investments. In the case of Liberia, like you said, the remittances have declined, from 2017 to 2018, but it was a $408 million in 2018. We had onward about 300 million, so we had a net about 109 net inward remittance. Now, I always tell the people in charge in this country, diaspora is not just about remittances for personal expenses, but diaspora funding of development. If they can harness diaspora funding and they can target that specifically towards development in the country, and they can treat the diaspora as a pool of funds that can be used for the country's development, that would make a lot of sense. One of the things that we also need to teach our people is how to manage the remittances that come in. Instead of just using it for consumption, they can also use that to build. They can also use that for entrepreneurship development. They can grow they can grow businesses. They can do a lot of innovative and creative things with the money instead of just consuming. So foreign remittances has become a major part of the global financial architecture. It just needs now for Liberians, for the government or the bureaucracy to see how they can channel that and put that into the mix. Now, you can't depend upon inward remittances because it depends upon the economic conditions in the diaspora in particular countries. So when there's a time of economic growth and there's time of prosperity, okay, inward remittances to Liberia increase. And also, especially during troubled times, Liberians will support their relatives. But when things appear to be normal, when things appear to be calming down, then there is that reduction. So it is a good source. But it should not be dependent upon for consumption. There should be other domestic capital formation, domestic resource mobilization. So
Thank you.
The inward remittances should be an adjunct, should be like what do you call it? Like an ice cream on a cake. But we should be more concerned about how we create jobs, how we create income, and then how we could create.
All right. Let me stop you there, Mr. Jackson. We'll come back because you made a good point about the amount of remittances that went to Liberia, some $400 million. So we'll come back to that question, but I want to go to Dennis. Dennis is not a financial expert. He's a media guy. Dennis, I want you to tell me, what do you hear from Liberians as you conduct these shows in terms of sending money back home? And for those who are not familiar with the word remittances, it just means sending money back home to your relatives or family members. So, Mr. Dennis, give us a view on what your own view of remittances is, how could it help the country, and what you're hearing from your audience.
Right. I mean, everyone, including myself, when I was on refugee camp, we look forward to remittances, and they became kind of our only source of survival. We tried to augment that with little businesses that we did here and there, but remittances were a big part of it, going to Western Union and going to MoneyGram and that kind of stuff. What I'm hearing now is on the exchange. Right now, when you, and I will come back to you, financial people, as to why or what is the benefit of getting the money either in foreign currency or in the local currency, because that's what people are complaining of most. It used to be 100% US dollar. It came to 75% US and 25% Liberian dollar. That's what they get. And they also complain about the selling and the buying rate. So you receive $25 in Liberian money as part of your remittance. But if you take that same $25 right outside of the bank, it's no longer $25. So if you are sending money to someone, something that costs $100, they want you to send something above $100 because they're going to lose money when they change that $25 to local money. So that has been their major complaint. And I don't know, you can tell me what is the benefit of the government or the country changing the money to the local currency before giving it to the people.
Okay, I would direct that question back to Mr. Jackson, and then we'll go to Dr. Gonpu. So, Mr. Jackson, again, we'll ask you as many questions. Please keep it about 30 seconds to a minute, if you can.
Okay, but I mean, I can't speak in increments of 30 seconds. It's not going to do justice to what I'm.
No, but you have more time. If you're on CNN or CNBC, you have to, because they're not going to let you explain. This is like CNBC. So the question he asked you, let's stick to that. 30 seconds,
but I mean,
we'll come back.
We've already spent 30 seconds, so you want me to stop now, or you want me to answer the question?
Wherever time you start talking, just give it a 30 seconds to a minute.
Great. Okay. The change.
He asked the change, correct.
I'm upset. The change, the proportion of Liberian dollars that is being paid on inward remittances, that is a migration to move to a single currency, and also for financial deepening and financial inclusion and building a stronger external sector. Most countries, in fact, I don't know any country that has its own currency that pays inward remittances in the foreign currency. Liberia is the only one in the region that I know. Maybe I don't know anywhere else. So you know anywhere else, but that's bad for our reserves. It's bad. It's really, really bad business. This dual currency was good when we came out of war. It propped up our domestic currency. It helped us with our reserves and our external sector, and it also helped to stabilize the domestic economy. But now it appears that we need to de-dollarize as much as possible to go more to a domestic currency. And I think the decision in most people's minds here, and I've done some studies, it appears that we are moving toward a single currency. So what it means that we need to increase the transactional demand for the Liberian dollars. So we have to denominate in prices of goods and services in Liberian dollars. We have to accept.
Okay, so you support, so Mr. Jackson, to the point, you support
but let me just finish that, but you have
the
to give me a
fact that,
chance. You have to give me a
yeah,
chance.
but again, you went over a minute because I gotta go. I mean, you gotta go. I won't
No,
give you
but
another
I don't know-
opportunity.
well,
All I want
I
to
don't know what this
know, what?
is
Let's give it a
about.
second. Let me lay the
I
premise.
can't
Let
explain
me give you.
anything.
I know, Mr. Jackson. I know we Liberians, we can't answer questions. I'm guilty of that, and we all have a thing going on. The question I want to know from you. You answer the question. You said it's a good decision. Let's move on. You answer the question. You said that we need to dollarize. I mean, we need to get away from dollarization. We need that no country in the world that will exchange a remittance into a foreign currency. I agree with you. Let's move on. Mr. Gonpu, what's your view on that? If that's the case, why isn't Liberia giving 100% Liberian dollar at this time, like the minister said, instead of giving half in US dollar and half like any other country? You got a minister.
Yeah, I don't know the basis of that policy to go from 25% like Liberian dollars to, they're talking about trying to even increase it to, I think maybe 50% or so. But I hear Sam's point with respect to de-dollarization. But then if you're talking about de-dollarization, the government has to also consider its side. There are so many prices in the country that are dollarized, that people have to pay their bills in US dollars. There are some schools that collect their fees in US dollars. There are some businesses that for certain type of business, they want US dollar. If you need an airline ticket, I don't know whether you can carry Liberian dollar to an airline agency and buy a ticket. So if you're going to de-dollarize and you're trying to basically force the de-dollarization, you basically have to do your side of it in terms of requiring that prices and payments be made in Liberian dollars. But that is not happening. There are some landlords who have contracts that says you have to pay your rent in US dollars. And it will be interesting for Sam to even answer, because I believe he has some real estate over there. What do your tenants pay their rent?
Dr. Gonpu, Dr. Gonpu, okay, very guess for now. Let's get it honorable. Well, I want to know you, if you find yourself today, good idea, payments in a foreign currency, US dollar or whatever, or euro or whatever currency.
At this time, our currency is unstable. The currency is unstable.
All right, let's move on. So you would.
So okay. I won't require that these funds be provided in the local currency. If the customer wants it that way, let it be so. Because right now, the exchange rate is not, the exchange rate between the banks and the streets are different. And,
okay. So the point we're taking, again, I gotta be fair to everybody. We'll bring Dennis back in. We'll keep it to 1 minute, or I'll have to cut the person off. We'll come back to you. Dennis, would you rather your family receive US dollars when you send them, or would you, like Mr. Jackson said, and I think some economists have also said that dual currency is not a good idea in the interest of the country? Would you rather your family member exchange the money that you send to them to local currency, help build the country, bite the bullet, and develop the country, or do you think it's a bad idea? They should keep the US dollars and our rate continue to fall. Mr. Dennis, are you there?
I think you lost him.
Okay, so I would take that question and give it back to you, Mr. Jackson. Again, what if you are finance minister today, central bank governor, chief advisor to the president of Liberia, and he asks you directly, Mr. Jackson, do you think I should get rid of the US dollar being used in Liberia, or we should keep it as it is? What would be your answer?
Well, I would use the US dollar as reserve currency, and I would increase the transactional demand for Liberian dollars. I would denominate all goods, or the payment of all goods and services, including like Dr. Gonpu was worried about my real estate, I would gladly take payment in Liberian dollars if I can pay my taxes in Liberian dollars, and if I can buy my ticket to travel to the United States in Liberian dollars. But you can't have
correct.
a truncated.
When we're taking, we got the answer. Dr. Gonpu, what do you think is the challenge in passing laws? So we have a Justice Department, we have a Minister of Commerce. Why has it been so difficult? You were assistant minister at one point. Why has it been so difficult to regulate the currency, whether it's Liberian dollar or US dollar or both? Why, in your capacity as a minister and an economist in Liberia than any other place in the world?
Yeah, I think one of the key difficulty is that our currency is in very low demand, and is in low demand because the value of the currency has not been stable. So,
but do you think that the reason why it's not stable is because we don't have a firm policy? We don't think our currency is less valuable than Sierra Leone currency or Guinea currency or Benin currency. The only difference perhaps is just that we don't have regulatory measures in place to make.
I don't think so. I don't think it's just a matter of passing law. It's also about the management of monetary policy. Who's in charge and how?
Yeah, but I'm asking you now. No, Mr. Dr. Gonpu, that's my question to you.
I don't think it's just a matter of
Dr. Gonpu, yes, my question. Forget the law. What I'm saying, you were head of the budget in Liberia. Why was it so difficult? Or what can you give us the extenuating circumstances why Liberians are unable to enforce economic and financial laws, such as every country have a currency. Everybody, whether rich or poor, Japan or Benin or Congo, you transfer money to the country, you receive the local dollar. That's how it is, rich or poor country. Liberia is one of the few countries that have a dual currency. I think there are only 2 countries in the world. Why has it been so difficult for us to make such as you guys to enforce the law that you wrote in the charters?
No, there's not a law. There's not a law there that says that Liberia only have one currency.
Why there isn't a law? Then my question would be why the financial administration, knowing that every country has to have some currency law, why Liberia has not have a law? And I would take the same question back to Mr. Jackson. Well, why we have failed to create a financial law for our currency like every other country?
Yeah, the thing is,
Dr. Gonpu, here is the real reason. The real reason is that the Central Bank Act of 1999 specifically says that we are dual currency, that the US dollar and the Liberian dollar are legal tender. And now here is a practical matter. And as Dr. Gonpu, who's an economist, knows, the fundamental problem why we have this volatility in this depreciation of the Liberian dollar, including this diabolical infusion, is the lack of productivity within the economy. We don't produce much. We are a narrow-based economy. We only export 2 commodities, which is rubber and iron ore, with exogenous circumstances impacting those 2 products. And because we have that, that is the reason why we have a depreciating currency. So during the post-war dispensation with democratic dispensation, when Ellen took over, there was a lot of on-mail and UN-related activities, and there was a windfall of US dollars floating around the economy. So Ellen was mismanaging, but we didn't feel the negative effects of the mismanagement because there was a lot of donor money coming in. Almost $10 billion came into the country between 2006 and the end of 2017. So now,
so Mr. Jackson, then, if we have it written in our constitution that we should have dual currency, then why are you arguing against it? Why then?
we have the Central Bank Act. It's the Central Bank Act.
But the central bank is the one who manages the Liberian dollar.
Yeah, but yeah, our central bank says, well, and the act said, and then it was legislated that we have a dual currency regime. So the Liberian dollar and the US dollar exist side by side. And that was helpful in the immediate post-war period. But now, with the fundamentals of the economy crashing, we need to develop a monetary architecture that migrates to a single currency, and we use the Liberian dollar for most transactions, increase the transactional demand for Liberian dollars, and use the US dollars as a reserve currency. That will strengthen our external sector.
Okay. So my next question, good point.
And let me finish another. I think you need to understand that when you pay more money, when you pay 100% in US, in Liberian dollars or the inward remittances, what is happening at the Federal Reserve in New York, the US dollar account, the reserve account of the central bank is growing. The central bank is giving them Liberian dollars, and they're taking the US dollars in their reserve account abroad.
Correct. We understand that. But yes, my next question to you.
The number of months of import cover.
Correct. We got a point.
Improving our gross reserves. So that is the reason why it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and pay the 100% in Liberian dollars and use the US dollar as a reserve currency.
Very well. So my next question again to you, a follow-up question. You're very influential in the government. They just had an economic dialogue. Was that proposal made, or if it wasn't made, that we take 100% Liberian dollar and de-dollarize? Why none of the brilliant people at the economic dialogue that spent 3 days and I believe hundreds of thousands of dollars come up with this very simple idea that your currency is going to fall as long as you don't back it and exchange your remittances, which is your highest amount of income into the country. So why those brilliant economists doing the dollar, or why didn't the dialogue propose that?
Okay, that's a very good question. Dr. Gonpu knows the evolution of economic thought, and he knows the philosophy. Economic is just not a practical tool about supply and demand. Their philosophy, accompanying economic action. Some people are conservative, some people are liberal, and some people are extreme. I'm a radical economist. Okay, I believe that we need to do things to take the shock today and move on. Other people believe that we should slowly migrate through processes to minimize the shock to the economy. I don't believe in that nonsense. I believe that if people want economic development and want prosperity, they should be willing to make the sacrifices and take the shock and move along with the shocks. Because shock values is what change economies, is what changes, shock is what changed people, period. So if you don't make any sacrifices by migrating to a single currency, the Liberian dollar, and accepting the shocks and all of the inconveniences of that, you're never going to have control over monetary policy, because there are only two tools that we have for monetary policy in Liberia, because we have a dual currency. The one tool is the reserve requirement, and then they're doing something with minimally bills and T-bonds. So you need to be able to control your monetary sector, either to have a contractionary a monetary policy.
We're getting to that. Let me go to Dr. Gonpu and ask him a question along those lines and what we're discussing earlier, because I don't know who you were on, but I believe that the economic dialogue was a waste of time and money, because if they couldn't come up with something as simple as this, there was no need to go 3 days. Any sound financial or anyone who did economics 101 to Google and find out that no country in the world allows two currency. And that's one of the problems. But Dr. Gonpu, I'm going to ask you this question. You were invited to the economic dialogue. What's your impression, and how do you feel that as an economist, a professor in economics, that you didn't even get a simple call It's called whereby when I looked at some of the participants, they had never done a one-on-one finance course, but they were invited. They were on the platform, and I can give names. Magella Corpo is one of those. So was this just a joke, or was this a serious economic dialogue where you bring? No, it's serious because it's tragic. So you wasn't. Let me get your view.
Well, I think you have to direct that question to the planners of the conference, to the people who were in charge.
So do you think it was a joke? I'm directing the question to you. Do you think that it yielded anything?
I don't know what I don't know what the outcome is. I've just heard the summary that Sam just read. I don't know what type of baseline study was done before they reached this conclusion. These are
I say it was a joke. Let's go to Dennis. Thank you very much. It was a big joke. It's a waste of time in Liberian people because number one, you have an economic council in the president's office. You have a central bank board. You have a Ministry of Finance. You have a what you call the Joint Economic Task Force. Why do you need to gather people off the street to make economic policies when you're paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to do exactly what you're bringing people to do? So, Mr. Jackson, perhaps you can relay that message over to the organizer and perhaps to the president that it was a waste of time.
Okay. First of all, I'm not a messenger. I'm not a messenger.
It's your friend. I know you're not a messenger, but in the interest of Liberia.
Let him respond.
I'm not a messenger, but let me just. I find it very offensive when you say that it was a waste of time. It was a joke. It was not a joke. This was a conference that was sponsored by the UNDP.
It's still a joke. I don't care if it was sponsored by the United Nations.
Let him finish.
Sure. You said your piece. I think you should be fairness, and let me just counteract you. Okay?
Okay. All right.
It's not a joke. Dr. Toga McIntosh is not a joke.
Okay.
Many other people who came today are not. Sam Samuel Thompson is not a joke. Nat Barnes is not a joke. Augustine Kafwan is not a joke. There were.
Well, these are all the people who ruin our economy. So I don't have any respect for either of them. They've never. We don't have growth. Most of them. No, well, if you're going to direct a question and you say it's not a joke, I have the right. This is a forum. I have the right to respond.
Yeah, but you see, there's a joke. I accepted you to say that, but now let me tell you why I say it's not a joke.
Okay, I will let you.
Wait.
1 minute.
Okay, that to me that's a very jaundiced view to call it a joke. Let me tell you what the objective circumstances are. Okay. Since you are way far away, thousands of miles away.
It doesn't matter. I read the recommendation. It's a joke.
Sir, can you stop interrupting me? I mean, when you were talking, I didn't interrupt you when you were calling it a joke. I mean, I waited for you.
But what's your response? If you see it's not a joke, tell me it's not a joke, and then we'll move on.
No, it's not.
I'm saying it's a joke. I'm not going to be intimidated. My economic views and my financial views tells me of all my experience that nothing substantive came from this economic dialogue. If you want to tell me that what the people gathered there, that you couldn't have told the president that, or the Minister of Finance couldn't have told the president that we wasted money and resources. That's why I'm saying it's a joke, because we already have an economic council. We have economic professors. We have a Universal Liberia Business School. They could have come up with everything in our document. That's why I'm saying it's a joke. There was nothing. Okay. There was no economic idea. And let me move to Dennis. We'll come back to you, Dr. Sam. Mr. Jackson. Dennis, what are your view on the recent dialogue? Do you think it's a joke, or do you think it's a brilliant idea?
No, I don't think it's a joke. I don't think I have enough information to make any informed judgment as to the outcome. I'm not concerned about the credential of people that gather. What I'm more concerned about is what is they going to yield. That's why I was asking Mr. Jackson about some practical steps, because we have had dialogues, or we have had meetings that produce documents, the TRC document being one, all the agreements and all the meetings that we've had. So I'm looking at what makes this different and how can it yield the needed result. So if Mr. Jackson can get to the point as quickly as possible and I want him to explain that why it's not a joke. I too don't believe that it's a joke. because that will be little on top
Unprofessional.
over the top for those who took out their time to be part of the dialogue. So I want to hear from Mr. Jackson why he thinks it's not a joke and what really should we expect as the outcome of this conference or dialogue.
Okay, well, Professor Tete, former Minister of Finance of Ghana, was there, okay, as a panelist. You had other people from the UNDP system. You had Mr. Geoffrey Osterrich of the IMF, the resident representative. You have Paul Lamy from UNDP. You have the Swedish ambassador. You have many of our partners there. You have some of the most educated Liberians. And I can agree that it could have been much more open. I agree, it could have been much more like broader based. But this is what we had to work with. And I can assure you that I am not 100% comfortable with a lot of the lean, a lot of the mundane proposals that were made. These were basically, from my perspective, a lot of generic proposals. I like to see a more radical approach to economic development. I like to see capital control. I like to see some export proceeds surrender. I like to see a stimulus package that supports agriculture. I like to see youth unemployment. I like to see more financial inclusion. I like to see a more robust payment system. I like to see an integration of Liberia, the Liberian economy, to the global system. I like to see a much more expansive role for Liberia in the global economy. I like to see a stock market in Liberia. I like to see a capital market in Liberia. I will do some radical things to achieve that. Unfortunately, they are your citizens. They represent the cream de la creme. And unfortunately, they are extremely conservative. They were doing the bidding of the international system, the IMF and the World Bank. Because the IMF and the World Bank does not even want you to change the currency. The IMF and the World Bank don't want you to go and do capital control to export proceeds around. You have $257 million worth of gold and diamond leaving your country. That money does not return to Liberia. It does not go to Liberian banks. It goes
correct. So Mr. Jackson, in your view, I mean, you're not as blunt or as radical as I'm saying it was a joke. That's my professional view. It's just like if I look at a company's stock and it doesn't make sense, whether it's Coca-Cola or it's Uber, I have a professional right to call it what it is. I'll go to Dr. Gonpu. Dr. Gonpu, a lot of times in Liberia, when people mention anything of substance, the first thing that they bring a lot of names, they throw a lot of names. Dr. Wilson Tappet, Mr. Emmanuel Shaw. These were people who ran the country for many, many years. And Liberia is the fourth poorest country in the world. So how can you impress me that whether it's Dr. McIntosh or it's Dr. Tappet, is a fine, brilliant economist or financial analyst or minister, when his very ministry or the very country he's running has underperformed over 197 countries in the world. By any standard, you a teacher, tell me, if I'm bringing you F every day, what respect will you have for me? So my question is, why do Liberians feel the need to put a lot of names, recognition, and brand every idea, not based on the idea itself, but based on who's presenting the idea?
Well, very good question. The real question is, what do they want to achieve? If people want photo opportunity, if people want to keep doing the same thing that has been done before and they all know the results, they'll keep doing the same thing over and over and over. So the idea of a forum for Liberians to speak, as I said at the beginning of the show, is not a new idea, it's not innovative at all. Charles Taylor did this. Macintosh, if I recall correctly, Sam can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Macintosh served as economic minister under Charles Taylor. I think in the Charles Taylor government, if I'm not mistaken.
And so the Napoleon bonds.
So we know what the results were. We know what the results were in terms of the economic performance, in terms of inclusion, and in terms of the conflict that arose, that we ended up going back to a second civil war. I think it's time to really begin to think outside the box. I mean, we have to get to the point of realizing that Liberia and the Liberian economy is not just Monrovia and its corridors. Because most of the time when we think about policy making, policy critiquing, we're just looking within the Monrovia belt. So at this conference that was just held, what were the regional representation? How many farmers, how many business people from Zaza, from Ganta, from Harper, were represented, so that we can get their perspective, so that they can be incorporated into policy making. I don't know. I mean, we have to listen to Sam in order to get some of that kind of information.
Sam, I have a great question for you.
Alex, before you come in, I just want to bring in our viewers. There are a lot of comments on Facebook that I want to go to briefly, so that you can. But if you're just joining us, this is focused on Liberia. This is our economic forum. We host this every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Tonight, our topic is on remittances and other economic issues. Now, there's a question here from Sarita Thomas. He said, my question is to Mr. Jackson. With your background in economics, why hasn't these recommendations been put into our economy over all these years? Is it feasible at this time? First thing, 1 year say, you just sit here and criticize everything the government is doing without recommending any ideas. I think that's you, Alex.
Okay.
So Femi Adams say you cannot stimulate anything without a functional environment with 0% unemployment. D. Donzo say, where is the proof that IMF does not want us to change our currency? He also said this is all scam. And let me read the last comment from Jimmy Eastman said, Mr. Jones, you cannot conduct this forum in an opinionated manner and not accept other views or opinions. That's from our viewers. And let's take the next 15 minutes before we start getting calls. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the question for Mr. Jackson first, and then I will answer the viewers' question. So, Mr. Jackson, why hasn't these views been implemented?
Okay, look, I'm a financial economist. I'm not a bully. I cannot force governments to take actions or implement my recommendations. I'm a consultant. That's just the way it is. I have advised several presidents, several ministers of finance. My writings are all over the internet. You can go to my blog, www.samuelpjackson.com. I just wrote a book. My philosophy is very clear. Where I want Liberia to go: Liberian economic empowerment, prosperity for Liberian. I'm a Liberian economic nationalist. I believe that without Liberians taking control of their destiny in their hands, I go to Royal Hotel many, many days because this is a meeting place for me. And when I go there and when I see the Lebanese receptionist at the hotel, and I see a Filipino cashier selling pastry, and I see a Filipina hostess, bothers me. And I bought a keke about 4 weeks ago, and from United Motors Corporation. When they were writing the receipt for this money, guess who was the accountants in Indian? Guess who counted the Liberian dollars that I used to purchase? Was part Liberian dollar and part US dollar. It was an Indian woman. We are suffering from a high degree of informality where 79.5% of our people are vulnerable employment, and yet we are importing labor that can easily be filled in this country. I mean, these people are not rocket scientists. These people are not neurosurgeons. These people are not atomic engineers. Simple, basic tasks. And we have foreigners doing it. I'm part Ghanaian. I'm Fanti. When you go to my color market in Ghana, you don't see any foreigners there. The Ghanaian investment code is very clear. You have to invest $300,000, employ 10 Ghanaians in order to open a trading business in Ghana. It's very clear. I did a survey, a study of restrictions on foreign direct investments to 149 countries around the world. In 2010, when the World Bank and other international agencies were trying to force us to remove all restrictions on the businesses that we reserve for Liberians, they wrote 5 pages. I wrote 100+ pages. They relented, and we have 17 businesses that reserve for Liberians. That's where I stand. When I tell a Liberian president, do not give out your iron ore concession. Put all of your iron ore assets into one national iron ore company. When the price of iron ore was nearly $200 in 2007, we could have gotten between 10 to 15 billion dollars for our iron ore reserves, including if we added Wologisi. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf told me, which country has it ever been done before? These are not people, the people who run the country are not terribly sophisticated. None of them have worked on any investment street in America. I worked on Wall Street for years. I was second vice president of a major bank at the age of 26. It's people like Alex Jones, myself, and other Liberians who have the nitty-gritty experience from creating money out of thin air, have done fresh IPO, have sold junk bonds, have done...
Mr. Jackson, thank you very much. We'll come back to you. I'll take you for the compliment.
These are the people that need to be running the country.
Mr. Jackson, let's keep it going.
Instead of the bureaucrats who run this country for 172 years, and when we have the paradox of poverty, rich land, poor country.
Correct. So the gist of it is that you've given your ideas. The people do not want to listen to it. We'll come back to that very shortly. But I think the second, there was another caller that asked the question. And Mr. Dennis, please cut me off if I go more than a minute, so I won't respond to that question. In fairness, I can't cut these people off. So to the caller's question, no, I have not just sit here in America and just criticize. I have given many recommendations to the government. I have personally published papers on what can be done to improve our country. And one of the things that I've done is I've helped create this forum to bring people like Mr. Jackson so that you can be able to ask me and these people all the questions, because at the end of the day, this is something that we have in America, whether you're in America, Ghana, wherever it's your country. So to answer your question, no, I'm very engaged. I write a lot. You can publish on Liberia economics and finance. So maybe if you go and read some of those papers, you will find some of my ideas in them. Let me go to Mr. Gonpu and ask him a question. Mr. Gonpu, I know we've talked a lot about the current government, but it won't be fair too to say that the previous government had also made a lot of blunders. In fact, in my opinion, they've wasted a lot of opportunities in the history of Liberia, more than just about any government, in terms of money, in terms of having free security, which this government does not have. So in fairness, you were a member of that government. Can you tell us why they were not able to grow Liberia economy, to sustain it, to high employment, to create Liberian businesses, like Mr. Jackson just said? Why should a Lebanese man be running a hotel in Liberia and and why are we importing, getting foreign mining companies when we all of us here are qualified to do that, to run any corporation in Liberia? Why the Ellie Johnson Sirleaf did not do some of these things?
Okay, let me say this, that look, the Sirleaf government and the Sirleaf administration, when you're looking at the performance of the government, there's a need for you to look at periods in the performance. Look at the first term, Sirleaf first term, and compare that to Sirleaf second term. In my view, in the first term, that's when you had so many different reforms. The strengthening of those transparency institutions, the soundness in budget policy management. If you look at the data, our inflation rate was in a single digit in that first 6 years' time. The exchange rate, it was, the average was somewhere around maybe 50, 55 to a dollar. The budget deficit was, there was no deficit as far as I was concerned. And this was
fiscal deficit. There were trade deficit, but not fiscal deficit.
Is what?
There were trade deficit, but not fiscal.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking about budget deficit in terms of expenditure versus revenue. Correct. And then the international reserve also grew by a significant amount. So that first term was really, there were a lot of discipline in that first term, and it contributed to the quick graduation of Liberia from the HIPIC program in terms of getting those debt waivers. I think a lot of the problems came in the second term. Okay. I think a lot of problems.
What happened during the second term?
Well, during it, well, there were changes are happening. I'm not here to defend the Sirleaf government. I know that, you know, Liberia in general have had a lot of problems throughout the years. In the second term, I think when I was there in that first term, Robert Sirleaf was not around, from what I heard. And then in the second term, Robert Sirleaf came in, and he and Amara worked together, from what I heard, in terms of reorganizing government, making new appointments. In fact, I understand the entire cabinet, the whole interview and even the appointment process, most of it ran through Robert and Amara, to the best of my knowledge.
So are you saying that the finance minister and the economists in the second term were bad? If that, I mean, is that what you're saying compared to the first term?
Well, I'm not here to evaluate, you know, the good.
Well, economists, that's what economists do. They evaluate performance.
Yeah, I'm talking about performance. The performance.
Economic performance.
The performance
you
of
say
the economy in terms of those indicators, in terms of budget deficit, which translate into inflation, which translate into increasing debt, and all of that.
Correct. All right. So we know who to call
in the second term.
And so we know who to call. Thank you, Dr. Gonpu. No, Mr. Dennis, let's get.
Let me address that.
No, but you're going too much. We'll come back to you. Let me go back to Dennis, and we'll come back to you. Everybody will have the fair shot. If I go too long, please cut me off, Dennis. But can we please get some of the members of the second term of Ellie Johnson Sirleaf? We're talking about Amara Kane. We're talking about Sebastian. We're talking about all the people, Milton Jones. Come and speak to your Liberian people. If you're good enough to get paid on Liberian dollars, you're good enough to come and explain what you did. Like this men, like these two fine Liberian financial people, they took their point of time, they're taking questions. And I think every Liberian official who cannot face their own people, in my view, it's a disgrace to the office, because you can't be Treasury Secretary in America and say you're not going on NBC or CNBC. So please, this is a challenge. Right. Mr. Dennis.
Thank you. And if you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing remittances on the Economic Forum. And if you want to join the discussion, our number is 978-726-6965. We have a caller on the line. Caller, your name and where you calling from.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
My name is Eastman. I'm calling from Washington, D.C.
Eastman, welcome. Your question or comment?
Yes, my question. It is my opinion that this economic forum was held to solicit new ideas, to bring about some change in how we policy or some effect.
You mean the National Economic Dialogue?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would think that was the purpose. Now, in regards to that, from all the recommendations I've heard, there has been nothing new recommended there, nothing dynamic, nothing different. All these things have been said before. So my question is, if they reiterating the things that have been said all along, what was the purpose of holding this forum? If there's nothing new came out of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Eastman.
Great question. Mr. Jackson, I think we should send it to Mr. Jackson.
Well, first of all, let me just respond to Dr. Gonpu in terms of Ellen's first term. Ellen's first term was a windfall. You had 17,000 army troops. You had the quantum of the highest per capita aid, ODA, in sub-Saharan Africa. You had a lot of signing bonuses from concession, and you had the greatest quantum of corruption ever in the history of this country in Ellen's first term. You had the China Union deal in Ellen's first term that was extremely corrupt, when China Union, an investment company with no experience in mining, got a hold of Bung mines. In 2010, going to 2011, in Ellen's first term, Elenito, a scrap metal company that couldn't pay me $1,000 for services I performed for them, they were giving the Western cluster $2.5 billion. You also had Knuckles-guishard in Ellen's first term. You also had the illegal grant of a concession to Delta Mining in Ellen's first term. So Ellen's first term was not the glory citadel of financial and economic probity that Dr. Gonpu was trying to portray here. Ellen's government was the most corrupt in the history of the country in terms of the quantum of lost opportunity, the opportunity cost. Ellen did not, for example, diversify economic output. She did not expand the private sector beyond the concession.
Mr. Jackson, we got the point. We got the point. The gentleman's question, what was the purpose if there was no new ideas to have an economic forum? And what were the costs? I'm sure the Liberian government spent money and time. Well, if you don't have that number on you right now, maybe later on, maybe next week or something, you can provide it. But what was the cost and what was the purpose?
Well, the cost was under $175,000, and all of that was borne by the international system, UNDP, the EU. Okay. Now, apparently, he hasn't read the recommendations coming out of that consensus document, and so he can say there was nothing new.
Well, I have it up here, and I'm gonna and people are watching it right now. It's right on the screen that were released from the president's office, and it talks about 4 things. The cabinet, they're going to set up a cabinet member, if you can see it. What is it? Public finance and management, the cabinet committee on investment, promotion and private sector growth, cabinet committee on youth employment and skills development, and cabinet committee on peace building and recommendation. We all heard this stuff before.
That's not true. That's not true. That's not true, Alex. These are new approaches to integrating, okay, a town hall approach. You don't say when Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris go to a town hall, that's a waste of time.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
No, but I'm saying, no,
I don't think that's what you talk about.
Why are you jumping all over this thing? Just give me.
I'm moderating. I can ask you questions as you go along. Calm down.
You are interfering in what I'm saying
Yeah, but
You had your say. You had.
All right.
So
Okay, go ahead. You got a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, right. So please don't interrupt me. You know, when you were talking, I didn't interrupt you.
Oh, you went on. You're going on too long.
I'm just giving you. Look, I grew up in America. You just came to America.
Yeah.
So
hold on.
you just got there.
Okay.
So let me tell you how America works. Okay. The town hall approach is what this conference was all about.
Okay.
Is bringing stakeholders in a room and validating an approach to development. They do that all over America. They do that public policy forums. They do that. I mean, the interminable economic conferences they have. I've gone to many economic conferences in the United States of America. I've been to many economic conferences sponsored by the United Nations around the world. I went to the.
We got your point, and I beg to differ. I beg to differ with you. I don't think the Treasury Department or the Federal Reserve is going to have an economic dialogue to determine how to grow American economy. They have a board of governors, and the board of governors make the decisions as such. So I beg to differ with you. But back to what the gentleman said.
Yeah, we have two callers. We have two callers standing by. So let's get through the questions.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to put on the screen because I'm not saying when I make my comment as a writer, I have to substantiate it when I said this was a waste of time. Yeah, the four things that came from the conference. A public finance, mobilization, and management. We already have such a thing. We have the economic, what do you call it, the one with the finance minister and the central bank. Second, investment in private sector growth. That's not a new idea. Everybody in the world today, whether it was the Millennium Development Fund or every economist agree that you should have private sector growth, employment and skills development and peace building. What's new about those four things that you have to spend, even if the United Nations was paying for it? That brand officials still had to leave the offices, drive to the place, spend 3 days. The president has to leave on a business schedule. So these four things is what came from it.
Unfortunately, Alex, those are not the four things that came out of the conference.
Well, I'm reading here. It says this is the president's remark.
Yeah, but that's the structure of the implementation.
Correct.
I have it right here. In case you don't have it, I can send that to you. Okay.
Please do. All right. And when you send it, we'll bring it next week. And right.
Have it. If you just gave me, what is your email address?
I will send you it.
Okay, send me an email address.
Okay.
And I'll send it.
And we hope you can come back again and we'll discuss it. But let's go to the question. Let's go to the callers, and then we'll go to Dr. Gonpu, and then hopefully we can make some closing remarks and take a few more comments from Mr. Dennis.
Okay. There's a caller on the line. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
My name is Darling Wawu. I'm calling from Massachusetts.
Say that again.
Darling Wawu. I'm calling from Massachusetts.
Your question or comment, please.
I will first start with a brief comment, and will be followed by a question.
Okay.
You see, the issue with Liberia and the economy is very simple. I studied conflict resolution. And when you talk about conflict resolution, if you want to resolve conflict, you have to first of all identify the root cause of the problem. Mm-hmm. You see, with the issue, recently you guys just had a forum on how to resuscitate the Liberian economy. What they fail to identify or realize is that what caused the downward trend of this economy? What causes the economy to take a nosedive? People do not want to discuss that. And there is no amount of economic forum or management team or Jesus Christ coming from heaven that is going to rescue this economy until we can identify the root cause and put a stop to what causing this problem.
Okay.
Our people are highly corrupt. The three branches of government are corrupt. The low-level management people who work from the floor cleaner to the janitor, they are all corrupt. And impunity is another aspect that is driving this, problem in our country. And sweeping issues under the carpet. When things arise, we sweep it under the carpet and think that miracle will happen. So in order for this economy to be resuscitated, first of all, we have to establish the War and Economic Crime Code. We got billions of dollars sitting around in Liberia in people's accounts, and we are here joking around about economic forum. George Weah just became president. When he was a soccer player, he never owned a fitting house for himself. After 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 months in power, this guy became a millionaire. He rented mansions all over the place. He came to power and abused the economy. They just went in and took the economy, be talking about where we just draw money from without replenishing. And they have no program.
We're just a question, sir.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Question.
We'll ask the next question.
My question is, Dr. Gonpu, what do you think, what will happen if we change the country currency?
Thank you.
Do away with the dual currency issue, because I think the dual currency issue is also, having some negative impact on the economy. Why it is true that the U.S. dollar is helping to keep, our economy above, head above water, but I think it is better that I don't know what you think about, getting away with the dual currency issue and having one currency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis, we'll go to all the questions, then we get.
No,
You want me to talk?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so basically, I think the caller raised some very good points. The issue of corruption and impunity. When you have corruption and impunity, confidence is undermined. Our currency, like any other currency around the world, including the US currency, is not backed by anything. It's backed by credibility. It's backed by people confidence in the authorities who say this is money. So when you have a situation where our simple laws are not being adhered to, our simple laws such as when a public official is about to take office, declare your asset. Let people know what you are coming in with. Let it be public. That's where you start building confidence. It's very easy to do this. This conference that it just had, I'm sure there was no discussion of let's obey the laws. And so when you do not have a situation where there is rule of law and people obey the laws, then people begin to lose confidence in your currency. They want to hoard your hard currency. And which currency do they want? The very Liberians, in as much as they are highly patriotic, if you gave them a choice between holding the Liberian dollars or holding the US dollars, they'll prefer to hold they'll prefer to hold the US dollar. So even you pass a law, if you pass a law and say Liberia is a single currency country today, what you will end up having will be more black market because of the lack of confidence.
So what's the solution, Dr. Gonpu? If you
the solution starts with the low-hanging fruits. Let's obey our laws. The laws are right there.
So you're suggesting that if Liberians were more law-abiding and everybody declared an asset, that Liberia growth will be 8-9% in Liberian currency. Is that? I mean, I'm not saying that. Is that your prognosis?
If we become more law-abiding, change our culture, respect our laws.
Well, there are many countries in Africa and many countries in the world that has higher, lower inflation, higher growth, that are more corrupt. Nigeria is one of them. You have Congo, you got Kenya. Kenya is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. If
you look at the corruption indicators, you and I had this discussion before. When you look at the corruption indicators,
and Liberia is no worse than a bunch of countries.
Let me get done. The countries that are doing the best in West Africa, Ghana, Senegal, Ivory Coast, those are the countries that have lower level of corruption compared to the other countries that are doing very poorly. So corruption undermines the rule of law. Also, the income that is made through corruption is not included in GDP.
It's not reported.
Well, I would say we'll go to Dr. We'll go to Sam.
Let me get one more caller on the line, and then we go to Mr. Jackson.
Yeah. This is interesting.
Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Stephen Adams. I must
Mr. Stephen, can you speak a little louder?
My name is Stephen Adams.
Okay.
I'm not an economist. I'm a system engineer who happen to have worked in Liberia for about 9 years during the Ellen administration in the private sector. I happen to know a lot of the actors that participated in this last forum, economic forum or whatever it was, development forum in Liberia. In my view on that whole forum issue is that I think it was a scam. It was a scam concocted by a bunch of people to further loot the remaining ages of our dying economy. That's my view on the whole economic development forum. I want to address another issue before I hang up.
Okay.
And there was an indication that Ellen Johnson destroyed the economy, and Ellen Johnson and that the new government should not be blamed to sort of. What I want to ask the current actors in this new government is that they had 12 years to strategize and develop policies to effect either development in the country or to stymie the bad governance of the Ellen Johnson's Sirleaf administration. Why didn't we do that? Why are they not perpetrating even egregious situation in the country when it comes to the economy and the country finances?
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. Jackson, you get your work cut out. Alex said it was a joke. Mr. Stephen Adams said it was a scam.
Look, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. So let's just get this very clear. You may disagree with the philosophy or the politics of people who attended the conference, but you cannot say that this conference was not attended by people with the appropriate schooling, the appropriate number of years of experience, and people who can contribute to Liberia. Yes, there were a lot of instances where more people could have come to this conference. This is a good start. This is a town hall approach to development. And Alex may not like that, and Steve, my friend who just spoke, may not like that. But the bottom line is that Liberia is moving towards a degree of economic probity, despite all of our challenges. And I agree with Dr. Gonpu that corruption does undermine development. But I also agree with you that corruption is not the greatest binding constraint to economic growth. It's not. And you know that, Dr. Gonpu. The greatest binding constraint to economic growth is infrastructure. Yes, you have to have an enabling business environment. The most important thing in economics, as you know, is economic growth. The centrality of growth, GDP, output. With the increase in output, you can solve many of your fundamental problems. Poverty is manifested in multiple dimensions. When you're poor, you have issues with nutrition. You have problems with education. You have problems with the rule of law. All of the problems that we have in Liberia is because we are poor. We are a corrupt country, extremely corrupt country, because we're one of the poorest countries on the planet. We don't have the capacity, we don't have the institutions, we don't have the money to build institutions to curb corruption. Everything is dependent upon resources. Now, you take the approach of Acemoglu and Robinson and say nations fail because of the lack of institutions. And there's a lot of things in literature to prove that. But I'm of the opinion that productivity is what makes a nation good. In the Wild Wild West, in the Wild Wild West, Alex and Dr. Gonpu. There was productivity in the Wild Wild West, but there was no law in the Wild Wild West. But there was productivity
And
there.
America was one of the fastest growing Western nations. So
Exactly. So you have a lot of lawlessness in the west of the Mississippi, but you also have the greatest amount of growth, and America's manifest destiny was realized by what's it, Horace Greeley, Go West young man. Liberia makes a lot of excuses for its impoverished condition. The impoverished condition is also a mind thing. Okay, because it is your attitude that determines your altitude in life. I have gone to a lot of impoverished countries in the world, but one of the things I saw in Ethiopia is humility, hard work, honesty, and all of those characteristics, and the desire to create something out of nothing, to make something happen. We are not productive.
okay.
If you look at our perspective, world, we are unproductive. And then when you come when you combine that with the corruption, the lack of the lack of honesty, lack of trust, all of those have dragged us down for generations, for 172 years. So we have monumental challenges that we face. I'm very glad we have this forum.
Right.
Okay. I'm not going to be alive 20 years from now, 30 years from now. But Liberia, the best days of Liberia is not behind us. It's not today. The best days of Liberia are ahead of us. Because this is for the first time in the history of our country where we have a broad spectrum of opinions. The democracy.
So, Mr. Jackson,
including those being expressed on Focus on Liberia tonight. Our time is fast spent. We'll soon be winding down. So, Alex, just take note.
Okay. Well, I just want to make 30 seconds appeal here. And that is, I think Dr. Gonpu said corruption, and I think Mr. Jackson said productivity. And so I agree with both of them, okay, because there's aspects of each. My view on why Liberia is poor, I believe that our leaders, our especially financial economic leaders, they have not stepped to the plate.
Hold on, Colin. You will be our last.
When you have people who cannot sit together and talk about the economic, financial ills like we're doing here tonight. We all have slightly different views. We all probably have different affiliation, political or otherwise. But we can sit here and talk. Why can the ministers, why Kafuna has to only talk about Liberia when he's invited to go to Liberia? Why can't he start a show like this to educate us, to take questions? So the reason why we are not growing, because you're talking about economic growth, is because the people who ran the government, this capacity, most of them don't have practical experience, real world experience. So they only have a theoretical aspect of what growth is, because it didn't take us much for us to come together and say, hey, let's talk about these things. This is a key issue in Liberia. Instead of us gossiping and talking about politics, let's talk about our economy. And so I want to thank Dr. Gonpu. I want to thank Mr. Jackson. I mean, a lot of people I know disagree with Mr. Jackson, but he has my respect. And one of the reasons why I respect him, because he's one of the only Liberian financial former minister or minister who is open to come out and give his view, right or wrong. And I respect that of any professional. And so is Dr. Gonpu. So I just want to make this clearing call. If you're a Liberian former minister, current minister, governor, or just a student in finance, please call us, call Dennis. We will be here every Wednesday. And our forum started before the Liberian Forum. So we didn't copy anything. We came up with this idea. So please join us. Again, I want to sincerely thank all of the viewers, the callers, all your questions, your time tonight.
Mr. Jones, let me take two last calls, 30 seconds each.
Okay.
Call out your name and where you're calling from, just 30 seconds. Hello, caller?
Hello?
Yeah, your name and where you're calling from, 30 seconds.
Hi, my name is Rose Joy Carmore. and I'm calling from Philadelphia, PA.
Welcome to Focus on Liberia. Your question or comment?
I think it's more than I think it's a comment.
Okay.
Maybe I might ask a question too. But anyway, Mr. Jackson mentioned something about having a country that foreigners are working at the jobs instead of Liberians. I see Liberia having a lot of work and stuff, going against the government. But I never seen them doing a bulk cut, like saying, I'm not going to go to this job because I feel like I'm not put in the right place. So I think a man like Mr. Jackson, I think he needs to be having these forums and to educate the people. Do a section, do something, have a little thing and let the people come off the street. The native people, the people that walk around, the uneducated ones, call them, speak to the minds. I think it's needed in Liberia. We're not going to get out of a lot of stuff if we don't try to change the mind of our people. Because that is why that we are going through stuff.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you. Let me take the next caller, and so we can close this down.
Sure.
Thank you. Our next caller, your name and where you calling from? Caller, go ahead, please. Caller, Julius, go ahead. Your name and where you calling from?
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead, Dennis. And I think we should give the two guests for the fine participation. Again, we'll be discussing next week. I believe we'll be discussing the business schools in Liberia, higher education and the University of Liberia, and the economic implication, how our young people can start to build businesses and take over the banks and take over the different industries. And Mr. Jackson, I hope you participate as well.
Well, unfortunately, the next month and a half after tonight is going to be extremely busy. Okay. So yeah,
no problem. Spread the word, and we appreciate.
I definitely will, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come and interact with my compatriots from around the world. And I'm not shy when it comes to expressing my opinion. One thing that you cannot say about me is that you don't know my views or you don't know where I stand. So, I continue to be that way. Sometimes it's very injurious to my, to my wealth, to my well-being. People think I talk too much, so they don't think I have confidence or sort of. There are a lot of things when you're outspoken, there are consequences. But I told one fellow today, he said, "Oh, the people say they're afraid of you, that you talk." I said, "Well, why are you afraid of me if you're doing something good? If you're doing something good, you want a talker around you to carry good news about you. Unless you're doing something illegal, and I can tell you something. I said, there's no amount of money that anybody can pay me in this country to for me to see wrong, for me to see you undermining the country and making the people poorer, and I'm going to shut up. It will never happen. It didn't happen when I worked with Taylor. It didn't happen when I worked with Ellie. It didn't happen when I worked with Doe. So just get used to it. Because if you do something against the interests of Liberian people, you have me to contend with. The guy was telling me, "Oh, this here." Then let me just finish. This here, the person you talk to, I said, "Yeah, but I talk too much. I'm not talking about your girlfriend. I'm not talking about your wife. I'm talking about your family. I'm talking about the national issue. If that's what I talk about, that's good because I'm not gossiping." So I'm just glad to be here, and thank you all for inviting me. And I'm not going to be here because I'm very busy for the next several weeks. Sometime in November, I will come back and we can
anytime. You're most welcome. Dr. Gonpu, next week's show you'll be chairing. Dr. Gonpu, as you know, is a professor of economics, so we'll be discussing how we can get our university, business school.
So, gentlemen, I have to go. I'll see you guys later, eh?
I want to say something before you leave. Could you wait for a few minutes?
Okay, Dr. Gonpu, we'll give it to you.
Okay, I just wanted to
Go ahead, Dr. Gonpu.
Right, to make a comment that some of those recommendations that you've offered are things that you should review again. The issue of the capital controls. I listened to you when you presented on Costa's show, and Costa too has taken the idea and been running with it. The thing is, I think that the capital controls there is going to be destructive under the current atmosphere. We have a situation where the central bank is almost going bankrupt. 2 years in a row, the central bank has been in the red, losing money. There are credibility issues. There are management issues. There are internal control issues. Go and look at the IMF report on the central bank, specifically on the central bank. There's a lot of issues there. And what you are recommending that investors in the country take a portion, be required to take a portion of their earnings to the banking system, put it in the central bank. I don't think that's going to work. I think that's...
Okay. So we'll discuss that again, like I said, Mr. Jackson, I know you're going to be off, but anytime, just let us know. I will send you the email information so we can, and that's what we should be doing. We should be disagreeing. And I'm with you too. Like I said, just a second, like I said earlier, that no amount of money can pay me to say the wrong thing or I'm not bamboozled by anybody. I didn't eat my school fee. If I think that our policy is horrible, whether it came from Ellie Johnson or George Weah, I would say. And if you have a good reason why it's not, then let's discuss it. Then come on the show. So again,
and I think,
thank you very much.
I think on the issue of the relationship between, corruption and poverty. Are we poor because we are corrupt, or are we corrupt because we are poor? I think the causation tend to run the way in which that we are poor because of the corruption, the level of corruption that exists. If you look at the flow of money in terms of revenue to the Liberian society from the 1950s when iron ore were booming to the 1960s and to the time when we grew very fast. We're one of the fastest growing economy in the world in the 60s. And then we made no progress in terms of development. Right. We grew without development. So the point of the matter is, if we are not saying that we have to be zero, we have to have 0% corruption. But if we do not get corruption under control, and there is impunity, where in fact people are making billions and billions of dollars, which are not even factored into our GDP. Right. We really cannot get the kind of funding we
Maybe
need.
we'll recommend Dr. Gonpu that you be the chief corruption watchdog to President Weah. I probably will read a paper on that.
Thank you, Dr. Gonpu. We are out of time. So just want to use the last few minutes to wrap up. I want to thank all of you for your time. Next week, we're going to be back. But before then, keep tuned to focus on Liberia. And for all our viewers, this Friday, we are going to mix things up. This Friday, we have a good show lined up coming for you. As you can see on the board, this Friday, we're going to have, sorry about that. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. We saw it.
Okay. This Friday, we're going to have a debate. Again, a debate. These debates are getting very popular now. So we're going to have a debate on current issues being between Mr. Josiah Jokai and Mr. Tapla Zolizo Davis, aka Zolizo. They're going to be having a debate. Then on Sunday, we are going to have our African forum. We have our African immigrants in the US. We're going to have a whole series. Call some African immigrants in our community, in the diaspora, to talk about how we can all collaborate and impact our communities here in our respective countries back home, and what lesson we can learn from each other to improve our communities and also improve and impact our countries back home. So keep it right here on Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate and promote all things Liberia. We are also in need of help. if you can, if you are watching us, and you can give us some money so that we can keep operating, you can cash app that to us. Our cash app is $FOL 2017, and I'm going to put it on the chat for you. Is $focus FOL 2017. So cash app or something. It could be $25, $50, or $1,000, so we can keep things running. Once again, on behalf of my colleagues at Focus on Liberia, I want to thank you so much, our guests, for coming. Keep it here this time now we have show on Wednesday, Fridays, and Sundays. So we want to thank you. Thank all our viewers across the globe. For those commenting and asking questions, we say thank you. Unfortunately, we're not able to read all the comments, but I encourage you, our guests, to please visit Facebook and respond to those comments, and let's keep the dialogue going. Once again, I want to say thank you for coming. Good night, and may God bless you.
Thank you.
Oh my God, oh. Master LC, oh my God, oh. El Frankie, mama. I don't care what they say, that you are love, that you are love, you are love. I don't mind what they say, that you are